You're listening to People and Profit, a podcast that focuses on elevating humanity through business, sponsored by Conscious Capitalism, Arizona. And now, let's hear from our hosts, Jeremy and Sarah.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the People and Profit podcast, brought to you by Conscious Capitalism, Arizona. We're your hosts, Sarah McCurran and Jeremy Neese, and we are super excited to be talking today to Linda Scorzo and Curran Walia about how they are elevating humanity through business in their organizations, hiring indicators, and concierge marketing. But before we dive into the conversation, we want to share just a minute about conscious capitalism. Free enterprise capitalism has served to lift more people out of poverty than any other socioeconomic system ever conceived, empowering social cooperation, human progress, and elevating humanity. Good business is the answer to many of the global issues mankind is facing, and that's what we're going to dive into on the show today. Conscious capitalism is a global movement with over 30 chapters across the world that is on a mission to recapture the truth that good business is about doing good for all stakeholders, creating a higher purpose for your organization that can benefit everyone. Our Arizona chapter is focused on highlighting the amazing businesses and leaders in our state who are pursuing a higher purpose and consciously creating value for all. If you want to find out more about conscious capitalism and the Arizona chapter, visit ccarizona.org. And on that note, let's jump into our conversation with Linda and Curran. Jeremy, tell us a little bit more about our guests.
Well, you know that is one of my favorite things to do, so let me do so. I'm going to do what I call reading the labels on your jars, and then we're going to take a good chunk of this hour that we have together to have you help us understand more what's in there. So, Curran, we'll start with you. Curran values being conscious. To him, it is the most primordial force in the existence of life. In tapping into our consciousness and acting in accordance with it, he believes that we can produce more good than bad could ever exist in the world. Curran has always had a very healthy curiosity to seek out new ventures, learn new concepts, and try new things. He has always been interested in the human mind and marketing as it is foundational, the ability to understand the human mind and appeal to it. However, marketing was not and is not solely going to be a way for him to make money. More importantly, it is going to be a way he brings forth what he considers worthwhile to spread awareness about. Those are awesome comments. Curran, welcome.
Thank you. That's you read it really well. I might have you read that from a website.
No problem. I'll put you in touch with my agent.
Sounds good.
Yes. And again, we're going to ask you to dig in deeper there, but let me share a little bit about Linda, please. Linda is our CEO of Hiring Indicators. A self-made entrepreneur, Linda is fearless when it comes to taking a business to the next level, making sure it serves the customer with the highest levels of trust, service, and success. Linda truly loves people and thrives on helping her clients and their teams position themselves on the corner of success and authenticity, no matter what road they've traveled on previously. Again, that's pretty awesome stuff. Linda, welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to this conversation. These are some of my favorite because we get to explore both of your organizations in the manner that you deliver what we'll call the conscious styling of approaching the marketplace, but even more so, your clients get the benefit because you're helping them also approach the market that way. So I'm really excited to see where these conversations are going to take us. Linda, how about we start with you? We've got an hour, so give us your backstory. It'll help us understand more about you, please.
Sure. I am originally a native from Missouri. I'm a transplant out here to Arizona. I came out here and went to ASU, got my degree in finance, took a summer hiatus and did a summer abroad and brought home a husband.
Ooh, you're a good shopper.
And we have 3 beautiful children. Yes, the same man. And my 3 children have also graduated ASU. And so we've kept it in the family. And
For sure.
I'm Hiring Indicators is actually a sister company of a family business called Car Assessments based in the Midwest.
Car assessments, like the vehicle.
That's yes, CARR. That's it. Very true. Might be some new imaging involved there. Might work out. However, Car Assessments is an entity that my family owned, started actually back in the 60s, and they took it over in the 80s. So they developed It's an assessment company. We administer assessments, helping employers understand who they're hiring, who they're working with, managing their talent processes, utilizing these assessment reports. So doing that for 30 plus years, when they first started, it was paper and pencil administration. So there was no Excel, no way to aggregate information. And the candidates would take the assessments like that, and a manual handwritten report would be delivered. So through your birth of the internet and jumping from platform to platform, the company grew and grew and grew until the time that my family wanted to retire. And I took it over 6 years ago and decided it really needed an upgrade in terms of the presentation, that jar, that label that you started out with earlier. And so I decided to take that body of work that they had built over the past 50 years and turn it into a SaaS, or software as a service model. And instead of engaging directly and having to call, put that platform and what it does in the power of a small and mid-sized business so they can help hire better.
That's outstanding. You make that seem like that's just simple. We took a company from paper and pencil to fully digital, and then I went to dinner that night. I like your cut. One other quick question. So there was a transition period. Did you step forward, or did everybody else step backward when we need a volunteer to?
No,
advance?
I stepped
This was
forward.
your
As you can
baby.
imagine, a family business is always part of the family, and you're aware of the improvements and the ongoings. You're just not the driver of the mechanism. And so I wanted to jump in and take this to the next level.
Oh, that's great. Can you give us a little bit more about the organization? Just how big are you? What do your clients look like? Just a little bit. so we can
Sure,
understand
we
that.
serve a lot of different industries, nonprofits, banks, television. It's varied, some job specific. If they're looking for, we work with recruiters. If they're looking to hire for a certain role, we're value add for them to utilizing our platform to screen applicants so that they can understand more about the candidate. We provide, the end result is a 3-page report. At the top of the report, there's an overall score that's a job fit score. And then, and it's unique to each position, whether you're a customer service representative or a marketing specialist like Curran over here. So underneath that body, and it's all based on, of course, what the candidate's input was, you're going to have a series of competencies that are going to provide narratives to how to help you understand your candidate, how to help onboard them, how to break open an interview with them, or manage a large candidate pool. If you've got to hire quickly and you can send out all the assessments in one bundle, one click of a button, and all the reports come into your own personal dashboard that you manage and navigate.
Outstanding. And just about everybody you get to work with personally, I imagine that the
Initially, at this
tailoring of the
stage of
information.
launching the sister company, I want to make that personal connection with people, make sure they're getting off on the right foot. Unfortunately, they don't want to talk to me too much 6 months down the road or a year. They're just flying on their own.
Well, then you did your job right. That's great. Well, I look forward to exploring some of the more of case studies and things that you're doing to move the needle, if you will. Curran, let's spend a little bit of time learning a little bit more about yourself. Can you give us your bio, if you will, the way you want the world to hear it?
Sure. It's typically long-winded, so I'll try to shorten it just a tiny bit. So I guess since you started from where you're from, I'm from Houston originally. I move around a lot, which is how I ended up in Arizona. I started in Tempe. I started my business while I was living in Tempe, and I started it earlier this year. And Tempe's a great place to start a business. The people here are really forgiving and friendly, and so it wasn't as stressful as I would usually say starting and trying to run a business is. It was pretty pleasant for the most part. Conchio started from a witnessing of a void of good marketing and good copywriting, and I started out in copywriting first and then went into marketing later on. But it started with the observation of this kind of void of just people who had like a sense of integrity, who can actually deliver on what they say they could deliver on. And after like I had that conversation with my brother, and he said, look into it. If you see any value in it, maybe that's something that you could do. And I don't know, that was like about 3 or 4 years ago. And I did look into it, and very quickly I found that there was a lot of value in marketing that I don't know, it was never on my radar before. And it occurred to me that marketing could be something that makes or breaks a business. And this level of responsibility came forth, and this level of, that's something I could offer to clients that I know they need. And I mean, a lot of marketing is pretty horrendous, so it wasn't like a hard thing to say, yeah, I could fill that void kind of thing. But I did, as I was doing my research and learning everything I could about marketing, found that it has a very long and unfortunate tradition of being a way to kind of manipulate people or even trick people into buying something that they may not necessarily want or will end up regretting having. And I wanted to change that narrative while also trying to help others. And I'm a classically indecisive man. And so
Are you sure about that?
you bring up some good points. And so I, you know, even marketing, it was presented to me, but within marketing, they always say you should have a niche, you know, a certain industry that you want to tackle, that you want to work with, people you like, or some industry that you're really passionate about, or just a cash cow. And I, because I'm so classically indecisive, could not decide on a single industry, but ended up realizing that a lot of the different industries that I was in fact interested in all kind of aligned within this higher consciousness type of industry. And so whether it be I don't know, yoga studios or wellness centers or nonprofits or hiring indicators, there are
Which
these,
you're sure about, right?
oh yeah, there are all these types of businesses that at the time when I was kind of learning about marketing stuff, I didn't have the language for it, but then I realized it was going to be conscious. It was, that's really what it came down to, and that's what I really value at the most, at my deepest core. And then found that I could offer conscious marketing, because that's not a thing. That sure hell is not a thing, and conscious businesses are, and they're unfortunately just settling with companies who just offer marketing as a, you know, a means to an end, rather than part of the actual structure of the company. And so I decided to fill that void, and so that's where Conchio was born.
That's great. How's it going so far?
It's going pretty well. Business ownership is exhausting. I saw something yesterday that was so funny, but it was like, you know, if ask any entrepreneur, and they would say, yeah, I traded out my 9 to 5, but I traded out for a 24/7. So I mean, you know, it is what it is, but it's really cool, and I'm getting to do what I imagined, which was working with conscious businesses. And I found conscious capitalism after I started my company, and it was just kismet. So the alignment and things falling into place is uncanny, and it feels like it lets me know that I'm on the right path. So I feel good about it.
Yeah, it definitely is serendipitous. We're happy to have you here, part of the tribe, as we like to say. I'm curious, you know, one of the things that we encounter here is as we share some of the principles of conscious capitalism, people just instinctively say, well, that's how I've always been operating, or at least under a similar perspective. I just didn't have the language. I didn't have some of these formalities of tenets and things like that. So as you've begun your journey, are you finding, we call those people unconscious conscious capitalists. They just didn't know that there was this opportunity for them. So as you're growing and expanding things, are you finding you've got a lot of unconscious conscious capitalists that just need your special flavor? Or is it, boy, you're at ground zero and we need to build you up, or something else?
So I typically work with businesses that are already conscious, and it's one of those things, you know, when you see it. When I met Linda, I knew it when I saw it. You know,
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And it's really one of those things. I feel like it's intuitive to recognize. Like, you can look at someone and be like, and see their actions and see how they, you know, carry themselves, how they convey themselves through their business, and say, yep, that's a conscious person. They're trying to do good. And then it's also really clear when someone isn't, and that's unfortunate, but it's a lot more pervasive than conscious businesses, that's for sure. And While yeah, I did definitely work with conscious businesses solely. I do, and part of this reason is through conscious capitalism. I'm learning how to help others be more conscious in business, and so now I'm getting these tools to offer a business to say, "Yep, if you want to be conscious, I'll include that in our working together, but you have to, you know, sign here saying that is an actual intention of yours, and if it isn't, the business agreement's gonna be null and void."
For sure.
Yeah, so it seems like, one of the, in listening to you, Curran, what's my, who do I best serve, right? And so instead of a type of business or a segment of a business or a specific industry, you said, what we need to lift up here, who I want to work with are companies that do business in a certain way, and that's these conscious companies, right? And I suppose that when you when you're filling this void of marketing in a certain way or doing marketing in a way that is honest or transparent or serving a greater good as opposed to just selling products. It's interesting because it seems like you're also highlighting companies that are doing business that way by giving them the tools to better market themselves and therefore increase their own awareness as an option, to the public, right? And so not only are you working with these companies, but marketing is a way to bring awareness to them and therefore help them grow and give consumers additional options that maybe they didn't know they had or didn't even know that they should be looking for. Because I think that's a big part of what we talk about within conscious capitalism is vote with your dollars sort of thing, decide where you spend your money, but people have to understand that they have options and why a certain option is preferable over another, and marketing is certainly a way to do that, right?
Yeah, definitely. One of the best things that marketing does is it tells the story that's already there. A lot of companies, they already have like a great sense of what story they want to tell and what mission they have and what their purpose is and what their values are. And it makes my job a lot easier to just say, okay, let's tell that story, and we'll tell it in the ways that work, the tried and true strategies, and we'll make it better. And so yeah, it's definitely a pleasure, and yeah, I get to work with the people I actually like, which is amazing. I've done my share of rolling a boulder up a mountain just for it to fall back down, and I am done with that. Sure as hell done with that, and am on now to the people that I want to work with, that I would actually be friends with, let alone work with. And so and conscious capitalism is a good example of that, where everyone at the bare minimum has at least the intent set. They want to be more conscious and they value consciousness. And so at least I know, running around in conscious capitalism, I'm speaking to people of a high integrity and a good empathy and likely transparency and all the other values that I admire.
Well said. Yeah, there's certainly a common ground of values in play, no doubt. You made the comment that a conscious business when you see it, and I would guess that's true. I think you definitely know one that stands out above the rest. Maybe there's a middle pack where there's an emergence waiting to happen. They're not necessarily, twisting their mustache and doing nefarious things, but they're not necessarily jumping off the page as, oh my gosh, I had no idea these people were so intent on sourcing in an earth-friendly way. That's not showing up in their marketing, things like that.
Right.
So one of the things I thought might be fun to talk about is these companies that want to take steps towards being more conscious. What are the things that they would do? And Linda, what just jumps off the page to me is you cannot propagate your purpose if you don't have a solid team of people that are, rowing the boat in the same direction, and the exercise of finding, attracting, motivating, retaining people. I mean, that's your sweet spot. So
that is
what wisdom can we share with the audience on what are some of the things you need to do? And, Curran being a a budding businessman himself, like what were the things that we would step him through as he has to start considering augmenting his team and getting people to help propagate it forward?
Great question. I think investing in your people is the best thing you can do. And how do you do that is how do you collectively get them to work better together, build better teams? Our tagline on our website is get the right people in the right seats. And so utilizing our tool, you understand who it is, you see past the resume, you have a way to break open an interview question and reverse engineer the information on the report to really getting a better insight, adding a little objective data into the process of hiring, which is difficult for most. And I had the pleasure of meeting Curran last week and stepping him through the platform and showing him what the output looks like and how he's getting ready to make his first hire and growing his team.
Yep.
And how I can give him that power of that tool directly in his hands. And even there's a free trial out there right now. So you can sign on, create an account, no credit card, and administer 10 assessments, job specific. Again, whether you're a customer service or marketing specialist or radio show host, you can, well, that's not true. I don't think I have a radio show host in there. We do have 650 jobs in the application. And if we don't have it, we can add it by you giving us a job description. And then our team would review it and marry up the competencies that have been identified for success. So each report is different. Our assessment is different because we're utilizing multi-measure. So it's not a one-dimensional report. It's querying up to 6 different assessments are being administered depending on the requirements of the job. So as you scale from drywaller up to a C-suite position, the requirements are different, of course. And so there may be a cognitive measure in there. There may be a problem-solving style measure in there. All of that information, that secret sauce that's been developed over those 50 plus years, that's the algorithm that's running behind the scenes that populates that report.
Okay.
Could I ask, are you directed more at like small to medium businesses or large corporations too? What's like your company size?
I think our ideal, we serve all, but really our direct audience that could benefit the most, and maybe that's the unconscious, conscious capitalism part of it, is the small to mid-sized businesses, because a lot of those departments as they're growing don't have their own HR department. They really need help in how do I make the best hire. They have a good sense, like you identified the other day, what culture and who you'll do business with, et cetera. But this is a tool that's very useful to helping you ensure you get the right people on your team.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say definitely when we were talking last week that like I had come to the conversation already knowing what values I wanted to address with the hires for my new company, but I wasn't sure about the technical aspects. And I wanted to kind of create a hiring process that was as conscious as possible, that really aligned with like the values and whatever else of my company. And I feel like your SaaS is a really, really great tool in my belt of hiring as fairly as possible, because it takes out the subjectivity. It takes out the, I don't think you're a good fit because of some arbitrary reason. You seem to put in this objective, this person would or would not be a good fit depending on what your needs are as a company. And I think that's it takes out the question of like,
I've heard that time and time again from small to mid-sized businesses, that this has been a great tool to help them validate the hire. They had that feeling, and maybe they got it down to 2 or 3, or they have 5. They just can't make a decision. They want to which way to go. And in that case, it becomes more subjective. Once you've laid out that information, you have this report to view, it really guides where you go from there.
Yeah, for sure.
So when you say that it's a good tool specifically for conscious businesses, and it seems to meet those needs, can you tell me more about why that is? I mean, why do you think this serves conscious businesses better than, anyone else?
Is that a Linda question or a Curran question?
It's a Linda question.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think because we're serving the stakeholders of the company. As a smaller business, as you grow, when I say smaller, I mean, it could be anywhere from 10 to 250. When you get past 250, you probably have your own HR department for sure, probably past 100. And so as you're growing that team and helping them understand how to build better teams by identifying competencies needed for each job. So you, in a small business, let's take a water restoration company. You have an estimator, you have a payroll accounting specialist, you have the people out in the field doing the work. How do all of those unique individuals, they're not going to have the same report. They're going to have different competencies that are needed for success. So how do you help them understand, as the unifier of the team building situation, how to do that? This report is an asset to do that.
And so does it focus mostly on technical? Because I heard, in Curran describing his experience, it was a combination of like values and technical. So how does the tool incorporate all of those things?
Okay. I think it's best described as saying there's inputs and outputs. And the inputs are the candidates' responses to the questions, and they're answering questions in different areas of maybe about their personality, maybe their emotional intelligence, maybe their problem-solving style. It depends on the assessment that's being administered. And so all of those are being aggregated into an overall job fit score. And again, the competency, which the definition of a competency is, can they do it? But more than that, we're measuring the soft skills, the ability, the knowledge, the abilities and skills to do it. Not technical, not can they keystroke 60 words on a page, but literally the skills that are needed to be successful in the job.
So then is it fair to say that one of the reasons it's a fit for conscious businesses is because it focuses on soft skills in additional to technical? And, I think we'd like to believe that conscious businesses are looking at, as employees as whole humans. And so, recognizing it takes more than, just the ability to type 60 words a minute to be successful in a job.
Could you restate that question, Sarah? I'm not sure I understood.
Just that I was just wondering, is it fair to say that the way or the reason that this tool is a good match for a conscious business or a business that maybe operates under conscious capitalism type principles is because it's looking beyond just the can you type 60 words a minute and saying instead that we need to look at a whole human when hiring?
Absolutely. And our report will also identify strengths of the individual and opportunities for growth. And so those opportunities for growth are ways for you to help build that person, get them when you hire them, get them up and going faster because you have that piece of information from the report.
And then was that built into the the legacy company as well, the car assessments? Is that something that your family company has always recognized? Or is it something that you've elevated with HR indicators?
No, it was an existing body of work that I just translated into this right? As the software as a service model.
And then I went to dinner.
Yeah. The 24/7 job.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, it was a body of work that was existing. I can't take the credit for the science, the amazing body of work that exists. I really give credit to everyone there. I am just the nerd that decided to build out this model and put the power of that in other people's hands.
One question, I don't know if you have any stats on this, but when we talk about why this would lead to conscious organizations versus not, I'm wondering how many organizations do assessments of any type. You have a clue?
Well, the word assessment is equivalent to test. So when you say the DISC measure, I don't know if you're familiar with that, like Tony Robbins has his own DISC tool. There are a lot of assessments out there. So to get a percentage, but it's certainly growing. And I think the awareness of competencies, measuring those soft skills versus hard skills, because you can, train someone on a hard skill, right? These are inherent qualities. You could also teach them to become, in the report that we went over, Curran was a customer service person, and they were deficient in, I shouldn't say deficient isn't the right word. They just had a lower score in uncomfortable in a fast-paced environment. So I gave them the example, if someone is working in a call center in Arizona and they don't like a fast-paced environment, but they've got great customer service skills, they were, doing really well and everything else, you hone in on, let's get them comfortable. I know this about them. Maybe they were too shy to tell you that or break that open. Now you have objective information to helping them excel.
So it's more than just a report that Curran will use when he makes his decision on his first hire. It's a report that you go back to continuously and say, okay, how are we going to continue to put that carrot in front of you and find the motivators that make you happy? That information lies in this report. It never goes dormant.
It lies in that report. It follows them throughout their talent management process. They can use it at performance review time. Let's say that person is now up for a supervisor role. Well, inherent in that, never overseen other people, different competencies needed to be successful in that. So you have the ability to reuse the data and use it for a different role for that individual if the company wants as well.
Okay, like it.
I'd also imagine that the employee turnover rate is way lower when you know exactly the kind of employee that you're hiring. I know that, like, I work for UPS, for example, and our quote unquote assessment was after we were hired, and they hired us and then put us through hell to see if we would last, basically. And that's their process. It's not a great process, but it's a process. But I imagine if they had like an assessment before saying, lift this 50-pound box, let's see if you can do it. A lot of people who try to lift the 50-pound box and couldn't would be like, okay, yeah, I shouldn't work here because that's all we do. And I imagine that just in general, across all industries, the employee turnover rate would be way lower if they knew exactly if the person was a good fit or not, and not just kind of guessing, saying, well, they have the, I don't know, I don't want to call them vanity credibility things, but like, do they have a degree? Anyone can have a degree in marketing, but that doesn't mean that they necessarily fit what I'm looking for in a marketing specialist, So I imagine that the rate is way lower if you start incorporating these more objective and good determination indicators.
Hiring.
There's something in that word. You should gnaw that over a little bit.
Hiring indicators.
There's something there.
Yes.
So, go ahead. No, you.
No, I was just going to say, utilizing assessments has a proven track record of reducing turnover. And in fact, we are presenting on Wednesday at the Arizona Sherman Conference on the ROI of utilizing assessments.
All right.
Ooh, yeah. I also have a background in like finance and accounting, so the ROI, does it gets lights flashing over here too. But the question I was going to ask is, Curran, you were talking about your experience with HR indicators, and one of the things, and we talked about objectivity, right? And I think objectivity is also important when you think about diversity hiring. And so I wonder also about, all like when the process comes in, and if the sooner the better, because sometimes we tend to maybe eliminate or select people to move through a process based on how similar they are to ourselves. So it's just so your qualifications may appear to be the best if your opinions or your styles are most similar to mine, if I'm the one who's making the decision on whether or not you advance. And often we lose out on diversity just because that built-in bias, it can put candidates aside because of that bias. So I'm not sure, is that something that you you focus on, or that you've seen, results, or where you've helped, diversity issues with your tool?
Another Linda question, right?
Yeah.
It is, well, yes, it is a Linda question. I mean, Curran brought it up, and it was something that, if I heard him right, I really heard that was a bit of what he was saying. And so I'm just, curious how, if you were able to, meet that need for him.
Yes, in terms of the people he's administering it to, it's equally administered. There's it's just a name and an email. We have no identifying information that we're collecting. There is an optional survey to collect so that we can continue to validate for employment EEOC that we're compliant and doing that, but we need the candidate's input, but that's voluntary. It's not mandatory to complete the assessment. That answer it?
I think that answer it. And to kind of add on to that, part of the reason why you drew to me was I've been going through Conscious Capitalism's Insight to Action thing, which is also great, shout out. But it's cool. And the problem that I've been working on for the past 3 weeks is this whole hiring process. And so when Dom mentioned that you were going to be on the show, I said, that's so funny. That's exactly what I've been working on for the past 3 weeks. And that's when he had the idea to have us together on the show. But all in all, to say, part of the reason why you drew me in was I have been playing and toying with the idea of trying to have as blind of a hiring process as possible in the way that matters. Not necessarily like blind to my values and what I'm looking for in a job specification and other, as you call them, competencies, but more so blind to the idea of like who I'm hiring.
Avatar based.
Right. Yeah.
Mhm.
Because I think probably the best way to ensure that my biases don't get in the way is to make sure they don't get the opportunity to get in the way. And I mean, generally speaking, as my company hopefully and should grow, eventually I'm going to have like HR personnel who takes care of this for me, and so I don't have to deal with it. But I still imagine that regardless of the size of the company I have, these types of assessments are important to maintaining that temporary veil to make sure that I am DEI compatible, and that I'm making sure I hire based on merit and competency and values instead of something arbitrary and possibly
It's another marketing idea you guys just came up for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hadn't even considered that.
Aliases and avatars.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I mean, it is a barrier. I mean, it's a known barrier to building diversity, and it isn't. And it's a fallacy of just kind of the human brain. And so it's like we have to, have systems put in place that acknowledges and, owns it, those realities. And of course, it's not, just, racial and ethnic, gender diversity. It's also a diversity of ideas and how you build teams. And we just naturally, think that someone who sees things the way that I do is like a genius, right? So,
Nobody's ever accused you of being a genius.
Whatever, you tell me.
Walks right into it. Like I'm going to allow that to
No.
sneak past my attention. I don't think so.
Yeah, and so it seems like it could definitely be, a tool, a good tool, for that, and of course brought in sooner. So prior to just, I've narrowed it down to 3 candidates. How do I make sure I get the right one? But how do I ensure that I, I didn't get in my own way in getting those top 3. So I hope you run with that. And then one other thing that I was just curious about Linda, so I'll be clear on who is.
Oh, this is Linda Sarah show, okay?
That's
Yeah, so I've been known to take over, but is it just pre-employment, or do you bring it into organizations that are looking to kind of jumpstart professional development programs? Again, sometimes right people in the right seats could be within an organization. So we've got maybe we have the right people, but how do we be sure they're in the right seats and that sort of thing?
Great question, Sarah. Yes, it is a perfect tool to help leadership teams. In fact, we put on a webinar about the 5 top competencies needed for leadership this year. A lot of things changed. The platform itself has been up just about 2.5 years. So then COVID hit, and what do you do as a small business owner trying to kick this off the ground? So I started working with people. Everyone's remote. How do they work with their teams remotely during COVID? So I had to look at a different lens. You give me another way to approach an audience today. I'm constantly, the tool can be inserted in so many ways to help achieve the purpose that the business is needed there. Because it is a SaaS model, there's so much that you can get out of that. It's succinct. You understand what's written, the report. If you want those additional services, we have them available. It is an add-on to working and to helping teams, like having our coaches come in and work with the business, but they can do that as well.
All right, Linda, we'll let you take a sip of water here. So we started that train of thought with the question of what are some of the things conscious businesses can do? And the answer, I think, in summation would be alignment, right people, right seats, make sure that you're catering to the folks the proper way. So Curran, when it comes to how do people make sure that their authentic story is being told so that they can even have people attracted to their job postings in the first place, what are the things they need to be thinking about to get that story out?
Well, I think for any business that wants to be conscious, the first step to every process that you're trying to do is always make sure you know your values, because that's where you're going to jump off from. And yeah, obviously if you don't have those, you can't make sure everything's in line. After that, I would say make sure your branding is correct and making sure it's aligned, because branding is there for a reason. You want to make sure it's streamlined through your entire company and every process that you do. Once you have those two things in place, from there it's really about just telling a story like you would tell a friend and being as transparent as possible while being pretty much universally inoffensive. And yeah, I know that's a tough one, but yeah. So I would definitely say that that's the process to go with. And I think a lot of people worry too much about telling their story in a way that everyone will find appealing, but you don't need everyone to find it appealing. You just need the right people to find
Correct.
it appealing. And so my story is, I don't know. I don't want to say, what's the word I'm going to use? It's
We're on bated breath.
There's a lot of ups and downs to my story.
Okay.
And so
your story or your business's story?
I would say my story for sure. My business somewhat.
Okay.
And I don't pull punches when telling people my story, because I have a lot of faith that everything I have personally gone through and everything my business has gone through is relevant to where I am and where it is today. And in hiding those facts, you're telling a partial part of the story. And when you tell a partial part of the story, it won't make sense. I mean, I'm sure you've listened to a friend who's trying to tell you a story and they left out a detail and they get to the end of the story and you're like, I don't quite understand. What was the point of that? It's also why people universally don't like listening to other people's dreams. It's a mess of incompleteness. And so when you leave out details and you're insincere about how you're trying to tell your story and what you're trying to decide whether you want to tell or not, it gets messy, it gets incomplete, and it doesn't touch anyone like you want it to. So that's what I would say.
So do you find that challenging when you're working with a client to get them to share, all the important details of the story, either because they thought it wasn't important, or maybe they feel they would be putting themselves into too vulnerable of a position?
I'm gonna just preface this by saying working with conscious people helps. There aren't a lot of barriers to break down because they're already coming from a place of connectedness with you. Like they want to be connected. They want to share their story. They want to tell you why they are the way they are. And I think honestly, a lot of people are like that, but not really given the opportunities to express themselves in the ways that would prove to be therapeutic or helpful or, work towards their branding. So on top of that, I have been told I'm a truth serum. And so
No more questions.
I take a little bit of pride in the fact that if you put me one-on-one with someone, I can pretty much get them to tell me their life story. And like I said, their willingness is already there, and all I do is kind of give them the platform to speak it, and they love it. And then marketing for them it's so nice. So
You're a marketing therapist. Did you realize that?
Oh, new business cards being presented.
yeah,
like it.
I'm gonna have to add a service.
My tag along question on that would be, and your story is always evolving. So, and your values shouldn't, but what you're positioning as important may.
Yeah.
So is there any protocols or regimens that you suggest? Like, hey, if you haven't updated your blank in X amount of time, even if you don't think there's something there, it's time to go look. Is there any words of wisdom on that?
I think the best way to do that is to show it to someone who hasn't heard it before and tell them to tell you what they got from it.
That's great.
And if what they say doesn't match what you want to say, and maybe, write it ahead of time what you wanted them to say. And if it doesn't match, then you're doing something incorrect. And of course, make sure that person is somewhat aligned. Like if it's, a yoga studio and you're trying to convey your story, don't ask someone who has never done yoga or thinks yoga is stupid. Talk to someone who's already interested in yoga and is trying to decide what yoga studio to go to and why yours is the one they should go to.
Okay, that makes sense.
So I'm curious, and I feel like there's potentially a little crossover here, as far as Linda and Curran. But there's external marketing and then there's internal marketing, right? And a big part of success within a company and team building and really getting your purpose and values reflected, to all your clients through your people has got to be a component of that internal marketing, right? And so, what thoughts do you have on being, using, either different tools or development or when you've got that story, how do we, not just do it, shout it out external, but be sure that everyone within the team is also understanding, who the company is and why what they're doing is important. Does that come out in the assessments, or is there crossover between the two of you on this question? But, internal marketing, what do you guys think about that?
Here it goes again, right back to Linda. I think it's, let's see. I'm thinking about CAR and its origins and things that my family had built and done, and the coaching. And when I took over the business and what I could do and how I could serve a population, a niche, a group of people, and scale a business. So I developed this job. There were several products that CAR assessments is still CARR. You can Google it, look it up, and you'll see on there the leadership development, the coaching, supervising, interview questions. All of this there are many tangents of the hiring process, and it's how far and how much help does a business need. So in hiring indicators, the Reveal platform is a cursory glance, like here's the tool, use it on your own. You know what you're doing. Even if you don't know, we've put a huge body of work in your hands, because we've already dissected a job description for you. We've already lined up the competencies that have been identified that are needed for success. And behind the scenes, we've got this algorithm and these multi-measures of assessments going on to produce that report. So I think utilizing that report you can help build better internal teams and definitely, grow a business because it translates throughout. If you have a good employee experience, that's going to translate to how they talk to your customer and the face of your company. Did that answer your question, Sarah?
Yeah, I think I heard you say building culture.
Yeah,
Again,
that's what was running
I'm
through
gonna
my
have
mind the
to.
whole time.
I'm gonna have to re-listen to this audio after and get with you, Curran, and get some marketing ideas out of this.
Yeah, let's talk. But yeah, I mean, like Sarah said, I feel like that's essentially what you were describing is the different stakeholders that come into a culture, and I'm using all the jargon, so I feel like I'm gonna get like an A+. But yeah, I would also agree that a really good way to make sure that your company, in a weird sense, is marketed to on its own, to make sure that everything is consistent, that your company knows what's up, is having that continuous assessment of where someone is at before they come to your company, where someone's at during the time at your company, and how you can continue helping them to grow using their strengths and weaknesses for them. And I would just add to that to be a little bit obnoxious about your branding. Like if you delved into the online presence and essence of Conchio, you would find that conscious is written everywhere. Like it's splattered across, like you can't avoid it. And I think the same thing is true with conscious capitalism. I mean, everything that you come across has to do with stakeholders, or has to do with the culture, or has to do with one of the tenets. And I think that's the other key, is to make sure everyone knows exactly what's up all the time. And whether they're internal or external, just throw it in their face and be as almost obnoxious, just like the fine line right before obnoxious, but basically obnoxious. Yeah.
Make sure everybody's playing from the same sheet of music.
Right. Yep.
Makes perfect sense.
So did you say the fine line of conscious as obnoxious? Is that what you said? There's a fine line between conscious and obnoxious.
I've been called obnoxious before, but I just ignore it.
Yeah.
Only when you have your truth serum going would they tell you that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if I'm obnoxious, that's okay, but at least I'm conscious about it.
So, I think Jeremy said it at the beginning. You might have, Curran also said it, but and I think we've thrown out the word conscious all over the place, and of course we're conscious capitalism and all that sort of thing. But Curran, you specifically say the primordial force in the existence of life, right? So is consciousness, right? So I know I also see something in your background about philosophy, so maybe this is kind of where we bring that in. What do you mean by that? Could you explain that a little bit for us?
Oh man, this is like the most fun question, but there's never enough time. But
we only have a few minutes, just so you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Here's my elevator pitch.
Okay, cool.
My elevator pitch is that I found that every other value and quality that I find admirable, that I look for in others, that I choose to progress within myself, all can be boiled down to being conscious. Whether you're ethical, empathetic, transparent, diverse, everything, it boils down to being conscious. And if you're as conscious as a person as you can possibly be, there seems to be no doubt about whether you're able to attain these other qualities and to convey yourself in that way. And as like you mentioned, the philosophy thing, as I started to kind of delve into being and myself and the world, that's what it really, really felt was the most primordial thing. I can't quite pinpoint anything else that could possibly come before consciousness. And so that's where I value it on my hierarchy of being.
Yeah, so I probably have some similar views, and it might just say that consciousness is just being, right? It's sort of the most simple, if you can connect with some what does it really mean to exist, the basic energy force, who are we in our purest form without the brain and all the thoughts and identities and everything getting in the way. it's just to, purely be in the present moment, be conscious, and then everything else sort of happens naturally, because all that other, I always just call them brain problems, are averted.
Yeah.
Yep.
That elevator went down very deep. That did not go to the penthouse.
Oh no,
Those were some heavy thoughts to close
went
out the
all the way
conversation
up.
around.
We blew the top off. It went all the way up.
Enlightened.
Simply put, if consciousness is a thing that makes humans different from every other creature, then we should look at what makes humans different from every other creature, and it's our sense of empathy. And so that's what it really comes down to.
And therefore, you should be conscious about your hiring practices.
Yes,
Exactly.
Care.
Well, and I have one more question for Linda, and I know we're getting close on time, but empathy, right? And so that is, is empathy a, what's the word? Is
It's
it
a competency.
Yes.
It's a competency. Yes. It is a competency that we measure. And it is going to be driven again by the job position, but we also have the capability, if a company is looking for a customized report that wants to measure certain competencies that are unrelated to the job, we can report on that. Of course, the output will be output, but it will not be job specific. But we do have other screener tools, leadership development tools, reports that I'd be happy to jump on a call separately or even invite you to take the leadership development report if you'd like to see what that looks like.
And what are the 5 leadership skills needed right now?
Off my
sorry.
She tried setting you up.
Empathy was one of them for sure.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Empathy was one of them. Probably aligning teams was another. I really, that was about 5 months ago. So it's not fresh. The SHRM conference is in my head. So
that's what happens when people
I'm sorry.
I was being conscious. I was being here.
I know when you said that, I was like, oh, I have to know. So I'm sorry.
I'll send you the
I'll get back
report.
to you. Yeah. So I think we're getting close. Final words from either of you?
Thank you for having me on. It was a pleasure meeting you, Jeremy, Sarah, and Curran, spending more time with you. And I'm going to connect with you definitely after the show and hear more about how I can make hiring prevalent, make sure I'm getting my message across and being more conscious about it. So thank you all for having me, and Dom, for connecting us.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks, y'all. And before this podcast, I already had the mentality to work with you to hire and incorporate you into my process. And so this 1 hour conversation has nothing but solidified that. So I'm excited.
We do not expect any commissions. And we're fine with that.
Send you like a chocolate.
There you go. Well, we echo that all back at both of you. Thank you so much for being part of this and enriching our community with your wisdom and your travels. That's fantastic. Anybody who wants to dig in deeper on conscious capitalism, especially the Arizona chapter here, we have gatherings virtually every Wednesday afternoon, lunchtime. So you can see our schedule at www. Of course, there's a www. Somebody was just making a joke about that, and here I did it. Daryl, I blame you. Arizona. What's our website?
Yeah,
I'm lost. I'm with Linda on the leadership things.
It's go to the events page on ccarizona.org. We have our Insights to Action program. We have conscious business journeys with a lot of great business leaders in Arizona and even beyond. So that is the best place to go to find out what's up. And of course, this podcast is every month. So we'll see you here again in the future as well.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for listening to People in Profit, where we showcase the businesses that are elevating humanity through their work right here in Arizona. Learn more about us at ccarizona.org.